Welcome to the Catch Up podcast today, where I, Philip Blackmore, am joined by Shahzad Butt.
It's about the transformation journey. It's all about people. It's knowing your subject matter. It's knowing the industry and then putting client first.
So for you then to make that step and think, I'm going to be an independent. Was that quite a step for you, or were you very much well prepared?
And there was one thing I realized. It was actually how lonely all of a sudden I felt very quickly. You gotta try it out, mate. You got to give it a go. You cannot just let this itch be unscratched for longer. And if you're really good in what you do, which obviously if you're thinking along those lines, you've got curious mind, and that's the first step to success in my view.
I've known Shahzad for well over 10 years, from his early inception as an enterprise architect right through to modern day as founder, director of ERP Advisors. Good afternoon, Shahzad. How are you?
Afternoon, Phil. Very well. Thank you. Yourself?
Very good indeed. Thank you. I'm actually really excited about having a chat with you today. I've been thinking about it for the last sort of few weeks, and just kind of, I guess, our sort of personal relationship in terms of how long we've known each other. But there's actually sort of part of it when I was thinking back to sort of, I guess, how long I've known you and our touch point in terms of where I became to kind of to meet you for the first time. But prior to that, I don't really have, I guess, much knowledge of, I guess, your entry point into the technology space and then thus the sort of Microsoft Dynamics space. And I always think it's really interesting for kind of our listeners to kind of take people on a little bit of a career journey in terms of, how you got into the market, the roles that you performed through your career, and sort of bring us up to, modern day as sort of founder, director, practice owner. But I think it's really interesting to sometimes talk people through that journey. Someone that's there sat today starting their career as an IT consultant or in the technology space and thinking, well, how do I get to where you've got to, And so if in the first instance, I think it'd be really great to kind of, start off there, Shahzad. And what was your first technology role? Who were you with? What was the role you were doing? Just a little bit of an insight into that would be, I think, a fascinating way to start the conversation.
Yeah, no, thanks, Phil, for having me. And I must say, I was quite excited myself, and it's quite an opportunity to share, your experiences and connect further with a wider audience who doesn't know me yet, right? So,
Absolutely.
going back, started as a BA, believe it or not. I was a business analyst,
Yeah.
mainly working on the ERP kind of aggressor space, but nothing too exciting. I moved on to SAP, where one of my clients, we were implementing quite a large, I'll say mid-size in Europe, but quite a decent size UK company, and we were implementing SAP. And that was kind of like my turning into from a consultant with some kind of normal average scale ERPs into some large scale SAP. And that program carried on for a short while, and we finished the design phase, and that was the kind of entry to Dynamics when the client decided that the project is taking too long. And I was on the client side, I was internal hire.
Sure.
I was part of the IT. We didn't call that transformation team, but in fact, we call it like ERP team. So that was kind of just the ERP focused team. And we spent good, I think now looking back, probably under a year. We had finished the design phase, and when we did a bit of POC working with another partner, quite a big name in SAP land, and it was myself and the IT director then and the managing director of the firm. We're kind of sitting and looking at what's being presented, which is going to be the future of that particular company for foreseeable future.
Sure.
And that's 20 years plus.
Yeah.
And the managing director, he was a family-run business, bear in mind, right? And he was quite open and quite direct. And he's looking at it, and he's kind of, in a very healthy way, challenging the partner that I'm not sure, I'm getting what I actually thought I'll be getting. Obviously, the project is taking longer, and the cost and the rest of it. I'm finding no to very little flexibility. We have expanded. Our growth journey is just enormous in the last 10 years or so. I feel like I've been pigeonholed into my vision to say this is all you're going to get and live with it because you wanted that.
Yeah.
And that was eye-opening. I look back, to be honest, Phil, and I'm thinking, I must be like, 24, I guess, 24, 25. And And you sit with these some very senior and quite intelligent people, and you like, it kind of makes sense what this guy is saying, but then you kind of in the middle, and then you're working with a partner, and the partner has got pretty much every single reason under the sun that why that is it, and
Yeah.
why they are right, and you kind of in the middle as a young consultant who's kind of learning his ropes. And like something is definitely not feeling right. And myself and the IT director back then, we took in our own to say, let's look at the market, let's look at what other
Hmm.
ERPs out there. And Microsoft had just acquired Navision back then, and
Yeah.
that was Exapta 3.0, moving on from 2.5. So yeah, I mean, it was kind of, I can say easily, it was kind of like love at first sight. You look at the product, you see that it's flexible, it can evolve, it can transform the business, working with the business as opposed to just being pigeonholing a business into a specific ways of working. I would say that was kind of like my early Exapta role. And then moving on from there, I did some work. So, work with the same client. We went live.
Sure.
It was quite a successful
Yeah.
delivery. Moving on to another partner from consulting role. I must say, back then, Dynamics consultants could do everything. I think you probably know, Phil,
Yeah.
yourself as well when we spoke last
Mm.
time. We are finance consultants. We can be technical specialists, and we are supply chain. And you kind of learn various things. And as a young consultant, I think it's quite invaluable to have that experience. And I call myself quite actually fortunate to have the opportunity moving on to consulting firms and then working on some large global projects. And the rest is history, as you know. Here we are.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you talk back, because it's quite interesting, and when you talk of the piece with the organization, looking at SAP and then going on to Microsoft Dynamics, and I know SAP has always been described as, I guess it's not overly flexible in terms of it's like this is how SAP works, so this is how you're going to now work, or you have to adapt, or customers have to adapt a little bit to the system, not the other way round. Whereas, as you mentioned with Microsoft Dynamics, as it came along, extremely flexible. Is that, in some cases, seen as a very positive thing? But were there any examples on your journey when you were working in the early days of Microsoft Dynamics where it was almost too flexible? Like customers could kind of say, "Well, I just want it to do that. I want it to do that," and then you go down this rabbit hole of you're customizing something within an inch of its life. So then actually it's almost a totally different system. It's just interesting to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. And I look back, and obviously moving from SAP, and like I said, at 24, 25 years old, learning the flexibility of the product and seeing how it can adapt to the nature of the business. And very quickly, burning my hands and learning, that's a bit too much. That is like, you go to the finance folks and say, right, how many ways you want to analyze your P&L? And they're like, well, 20 different
Hmm.
ways. I'm like, ooh, that's a bit too much. Is three not the better way? You can
Hmm.
dimensionalize it three ways. And to a certain extent, the constraints are felt were better. And then, it's like kind of whole, you do the 360-degree realizing that it's not SAP, it wasn't Dynamics. It's all about people. It's all about transformation journey. It's all about change. It's working with the client, putting the client first. So actually, it was kind of around, I would say, probably about 2010 or thereabouts when kind of was coming to the tail end of my employment, if lack of a better word,
Sure.
before I
Yeah. Yeah.
got into this more independent journey. Literally, it was like when the moments were coming to me to see, I'm seeing the flashes of goodness. I'm seeing what good looks like, but there is no
Hmm.
consistency in a single project
Hmm.
by a single organization I work with or around. And I've been around pretty much quite a big chunk of the world or different continents
Sure.
delivering. I look back and I thought, "Ooh, who the hell was SAP? Was SAP the answer? Was SAP the right
Yeah.
solution? Have I ever moved too fast?" Or
Mhm.
and to be honest, Phil, that was the realization that it actually wasn't. Where I started, if I look back to that particular partner in the situation, it wasn't the product that was falling short per se. It was actually the way it was being implemented. It was the approach. It was the way you're going about the project by not listening to the client and not working with them to define the success. not waiting for the, give me 24 months and have a long, and I'll show you what that looks like after, X thousand million pounds spent. It's working with
Sure.
them and playing back to them before even you have a product to show. So it was actually, to a certain extent, a system agnostic realization of the transformation journey that I felt is lacking. And that there are a number of reasons, I learned that along the way. It wasn't like fix like that. Anybody
Yeah.
could do it. It needed specialist skill set. It needed very open, transparent team. And it does carry a risk as a business, where I'm looking at it now, that you could actually potentially have the client walking away from the journey because you told them too much, and they realize actually
Yep.
ERP, I thought, is my solution. Actually, it might well become at some point my problem. So why don't I just sort out the other bits that needed to be sorted around it and then come back at the right time? So I
Mhm.
think that kind of, like, I call it, like you mentioned, SAP, or the lack of flexibility of
Yeah.
D365, and a bit too much flexible. I when I kind of moved away from kind of a bit more fixed, do this, implement that, to becoming
Mhm.
independent and advising the client and working with them, I used to give like a briefcase kind of analogy. To me, it was like, if you own a briefcase, which quite often is what's considered to be the right thing to do, with the tools in it, and say, here we go, sir, twice a
Mhm.
day with a glass of water, you will be happy, healthy ever after. And that is not me. That is wrong,
Mhm.
because let's
Sure.
define the briefcase. Can we sit down on a table together and figure out what briefcase you need, what color you need, what should be
Mhm.
in it? And
Yep.
also being very transparent, that it's not like one big result that you open the briefcase and you get everything you want in it. Let's work on the journey together, so you have options, or optionality, if you like, to opt in and out along the way.
Of
Make
course.
sure you've got the vision right. You make sure
Mhm.
you lay the path and the roadmap of 2-3 years, and then work towards it. So, just going, kind of replaying your question, I kind of came out of SAP, not so flexible, Dynamics so flexible, or the other way around, or this is the right tool, or that's the right tool. It's about the transformation journey. It's all about people. It's knowing your subject matter. It's knowing the industry, and then putting client first. I think that, to me, was the main lesson learned. So yeah, if I go
Yeah.
back 25 years and go back to the same implementation, and if ERP Advisors happen to be the partner, I'll work with the client, and there is a
Yeah.
possibility that we finish the job we started, and the client will be
Mhm.
happy getting what they wanted.
Absolutely. And then in terms of, obviously, we talk about that journey, sort of early days in terms of consultancy, working consultancy, sort of what we call like a permanent job, and then becoming more independent. From your perspective, Shazad, when you were kind of working in, I guess, the partner channel within the Microsoft Dynamics space, early career, is there anything sort of on that early journey when you kind of look back at your kind of, and I know you've talked about it a little bit there, but like kind of learnings and experiences that like you look at today and think there was some great sort of takeaways, some positives where I looked at, do you know what, when I remember when I worked there or I learned this and I thought that was a great piece of advice from someone, or I'm not saying a mentor, but just someone that you worked with that was maybe, further down their career journey, and you looked at that and you thought, and that's sort of stuck with you and it stays with you. And I guess equally, were there some learnings on the other side of things where you kind of thought, I'm seeing things being done that I think if I had the, I guess, autonomy to do it how I perceive it, I'd maybe change things a little bit.
Well, I mean, it's interesting, Phil. I was a consultant for good, I think, about 10 to 12 years, working as an employee, and then I was independent for a couple of years after that.
Hmm.
And then obviously we got into the ERP advisors, and then
Yeah.
all of that journey. I think there's a lot of, to me, I love to share a lot of stories, but there's one moment which sticks to my mind, because I must say that was a moment of felt, think again, Shazad, what do we need to do? And that was actually, I could do go back as about 2008 or 9, because I had my first child, and just came out of
Yeah.
kind of paternity leave, and sleepless nights, or beautiful nights, I
Yeah.
call them. And then I was just got back to work, and there was a global kind of a telecom client that was quite
Hmm.
massive for that particular organization, and they had just acquired another subsidiary business
Hmm.
in Ghana, in Accra.
Oh, yep.
So it's like, oh, you get good back, and you've got some SAP background, you know Dynamics pretty well, you're the architect, blah blah blah, and we need to write a business case. So it's and you know a bit about mergers and then acquisitions. So could you just fly out to Ghana and just write a business case? It's a kind of two-horse race, and you're a more suited person. It's quite really interesting actually when I
Mhm.
look back, and I'm like, I flew there, Phil, and it was hilarious actually. So I'm the D365 specialist architect. I
Mhm.
was going to do some business case and figure out what that particular telecom company should do in Accra, given it's
Mhm.
acquired by a big giant, a global giant. And SAP, I'll kind of like and brush up my skills a little bit, and
Mhm.
justify the pros and cons, and be very transparent, very honest. And the reason I was sent there was because it was they're using Dynamics 365. Well,
Sure.
except back then, right?
Yeah.
They're using Dynamics, right? So you
Mhm.
one other specialist, you go there, and long and the short is I got there, and it took me like the first 1 hour. I was just back from maternity or paternity and all of that, and I just got
Yeah.
there, and I just realized actually I figured out they were not using Dynamics or Exapta. They are in Dynamics Great Plains, which is completely different product. And I was like, goodness me. So I'm here to represent you, and I'm going to write the business case, and then they are on the third product. So kind of obviously call back home to the bosses. What do you want me to do? And the answer
Yeah.
is it still is two horse race. Figure out, it's the business case between the two. I'm like, but they've got something else, and that seems pretty much all right. Now I'm not a specialist
Yeah.
in it. So
Sure.
I had to call a friend. Believe it or not, it was a week, and I still remember. Spent Saturday, Sunday learning a little bit of
Mhm.
the Great Plains, and calling my friend to help me with the
Yeah,
pros and
yeah.
cons of the product itself. In the end, on Monday, I was like, yes, I've got actually the solution. Actually, there
Mhm.
is a Great Plains. It's okay for the time being. You don't
Yeah.
need to migrate because they're really struggling with the serial number tracking of the phones, and Great Plains can give you that.
Fine.
So
Perfect.
excited, and dialed in a call, Monday morning to say, guys, actually, there's a solution number three, which seems to be the right fit.
Mhm.
And anyway, it was like, nah, nah, the two options are the options, and I'm like, I'm not so sure, really, guys. I'm not so sure that is a solution, and that was kind of like for me. Those were the moments, clarity which
Yeah.
comes to you to say. Obviously, I must say, I'll be lying to you if I say, that was the day I said ERP Advisors. No, I just thought, you know what?
Yeah.
I was completely independent right now. And if I write
Mm.
it doesn't need a 100-pager. I need
Mhm.
no boilerplate. All I need is 3 pages to explain the pros and cons, define the problem statement, and tell the client as you write
Mhm.
the solution. So that's kind of where, I look back, but again, you kind of like at times your hands are tied, you do what you got to do. And I just look back and I say, and tell pretty much anyone and everyone who's going through this journey to say, just work on the honesty and transparency, within yourself, within your organization, and then just let it manifest itself. You don't have to believe in doing what you're told to do, as
Mhm.
long as you're reasonably in a healthy way vocal about it and explain what you believe is the right thing to do. You never know, the client and your bosses in the organization listen to it,
Mhm.
and help you deliver that. And if that isn't happening,
Yeah.
at least you know it, you know
Of
where you
course.
stand.
You've got a choice, haven't you? You either stay and you do as you're kind of told to a certain extent, or you think this maybe isn't the right environment for me, and I'll go and make a change.
Exactly. And, I mean, like I said, I love to say that I've been through every project and we've done everything 100% right. But kind of always say that just aim for good, don't
Mhm.
don't aim for perfection. Good is pretty good, actually.
In our world, it's very good. Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, good is, in my view, exactly. Good is perfect.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And then you move from that sort of, I guess, what we call a permanent roles, and then you make that sort of independent step in terms of you kind of go out. So for you then to make that step and think, I'm going to be an independent, I'm going to provide those advisory services, your learnings. Was that quite a step for you, or were you very much well prepared and in your mind of like, no, I know this is what I kind of need to do, or was there a bit of a, family, mortgage, life, all the rest of it? Did that play a part in your decision making?
In my view, or at least up until now, if you believe in yourself, then you
Yeah,
believe in the outcome. So to me,
sure.
if I'm being honest with you, from proper employment to being a very independent consultant to running this consultancy now, there was never actually the defining or deciding factor was to say, right, that is more secure,
Hmm.
that's kind of leaves a bit more for my kids' inheritance. It's very important things one must consider. I must say, I was
Hmm.
a bit naive, and I believe in goodness in the world. I do
Yeah.
believe in it. I believe you do good, and
Hmm.
the good happens to you. What will make me wake up in the morning and be
Hmm.
happy, enjoy and celebrate what I do, and I feel like I've added value, albeit in very small
Yeah. Yeah.
community, but I have given something, and that makes me a happy person, and that makes me a happy father and happy
Yeah.
husband, and the cash flow will just follow, and just
Yeah.
believe in it and trust in that one. There is a risky thing, I must say, for those independents out there or
Hmm.
employees out there thinking, you're going to take a leap of faith and go independent route. And there was one thing I realized. It wasn't to do with, goodness me, how I'm going to pay my mortgage, which obviously we all worry all the time and should
Hmm.
as well. It was actually how lonely all of a sudden I felt very quickly to
Sure.
say,
Yeah.
I knew what good looks like, and I'm going to do it now because I'm given the opportunity to go and work on this very large global program, roll out Dynamics and kind of engineering construction industry, and
Hmm.
it was so exciting, and it was a senior role.
Yeah.
I'm young, it, right? So it's like,
Yeah, I mean, it was still was the early good days. When I look back at some of the big early projects within Dynamics, I think of Northgate Vehicle Leasing as one. I think of AMEC as another. These were some really. The product was growing. It was getting
product was
exciting. The
growing.
market was fun. It was moving. It was the product was
It
developing.
was
You
it
sort of.
was developing, and I think this that was kind of like, for me, the learning there was a fewer, to be honest, quite few, and it was that, all the things I've been saying. Now I'm still a human. I need to eat, I need to drink, I need to breathe, and to do all I need to do, really, even if I work 24/7, it's just not gonna cut it. That was kind of like where I felt that this very independent route is only successful if you're surrounded by these like-minded people
Hmm.
that you
Absolutely.
could influence. And the way industry was, and I'm pretty sure outside ERP advisors might still be, that the independents are considered to be that for you, come and finish and leave.
Hmm.
And I was fortunate that I was at quite a senior strategic role, but albeit as an independent, and I could influence
Absolutely.
building the team around me as well.
Hmm.
Sometimes you just take a leap of faith and then the next step follows. And to me, that was
Sure.
the entry to say, you've got it's not a dynamics kind of team of specialists. You call all the profiles and certifications, you kind of list them. That's given, that's implicit. It's not something
Hmm.
I should be proud of. But the team I've built is a community. It's like, it's a
Hmm.
mindset that's
Yep.
growing now in the organization, and that was fantastic. And that was a project that led to what I call ERP Advisors now, because
Yeah.
that was the
Absolutely.
same values mindset. And to a certain extent, if you are, and I know you are connected well with the Dynamics community or around it,
Mhm.
quite few of them are working and representing ERP advisors, and
Absolutely.
they are the reason we are who we are, really. So, so yeah, it's a lot of learnings along the way, and there wasn't like one day, one project, one week that you like, that was the definition of what you do today.
Do you think as well, because I see it a little bit now, and it's sometimes not difficult to have the conversation, but sometimes I feel, and it's not one of these things of, oh, how it was different then 10 years ago to what it is now, but there is sometimes a bit of an element where I feel that you've got to go out and become that independent, to earn your stripes and to be at a level where you're very comfortable and competent and proficient in your skill set and your capabilities before going out and doing that. And when you look at Shahzad at the market, you have a lot of visibility of the market in terms of someone that employs people in this space. Do you find when you look at that piece that, when you look at giving advice to someone, if someone came along to you and they were sort of thinking about moving or going on that independent journey or permanent, that I guess the question I'm asking is, when do you know that you're right to do it? And is that something that's a personal feeling, or is it something you feel that like skills, experience in time will tell you that? Or has it got to be, I guess, like what you said, that you were very much like, you knew that's what you were going to do. That's how you're going to do it. You put good things out there, it comes back to you.
It's one of the things I discuss, Phil, with some of the independents we've hired in the past, and they come as friends, and they ask you pretty much
Yeah.
the same thing to say, "Hey, I'm considering that," and I'll tell you what I always tell pretty much anyone and everyone is that the question you need to ask yourself is why, and I think that will tell you
Hmm.
what. So
Hmm.
if the why is driven by, as the name suggests, independent, that you feel like you could add value, genuinely add value based on your skill set. Your skill set could be anything, could be a project manager, a technical specialist, an accountant, a management consultant, you think you can add value by creating your own delivery machine and bring
Sure.
it to the organization, albeit to a partner or to the employee. You gotta try it out, mate. You got to
Yeah.
give it a go. You got to. You cannot just let this itch be unscratched for longer. And if you are really good in what you do, which obviously, if you're thinking along those lines, you've got curious mind, and that's the first step to success, in my view. If you fail, just don't be afraid of it and don't think, oh, it's going to look, how is that going to look at my CV? Or I don't want to put my name on this particular project because that was a
Hmm.
failed project. I don't think those things. I actually, I don't mind. Associate me
Hmm.
with something that the world will say is going
Yeah.
down
Yeah.
south. And I'll be like, let me see what I could do. Let me try my best to rescue. And the worst case, I couldn't say, but you've given a best shot. So I would say if you've got the curious mind, give it a go. If the why is because of that reason, if the why is because of some more freedom of the hours of work you could choose or days of work you could choose, I would
Yeah.
hate to break the bad news to you. It doesn't work like that.
No.
Project demands are the project demands. If you're a good consultant, whilst you said that, I agreed with my on my contract. It's whatever 8 to 3 o'clock because I gotta do school runs. I'm sorry, you will not
Not the
leave
job.
at 3. You will call your partner, your husband, your wife, say, "Can you do the school run today? I'm really stuck. I've
Mm.
got this meeting." And if that sort of
Yeah.
person you are, think again. That is not a compelling enough reason. It may work short term, but in the long term, I wouldn't believe it's going to be sustainable for you to be successful. If the reason is third, which obviously is we all look at that as well, which is a commercial side, then maybe narrow
Yeah.
it down, perhaps define a period of time in your life to say, you know what, that's my opportunity
Hmm.
time to play around with a bit of my own PNL and see how that goes. Then that's kind of slightly different. So, as with ERP transformation, there is no one size fits all. Just don't look my next door neighbor did it and they did all right.
Hmm.
Uh, it
Yeah.
may not be a thing for you. And the last thing you want is not doing something that you thought you would have been really good at. You just don't want
Sure.
that. It's like they say the shots you didn't take are the ones you are gonna regret. So give that a go,
Absolutely.
but be very careful in defining the boundaries around it and perhaps time span as well. And speak with the people who've been there, done that, and not necessarily follow, but learn
Hmm.
what you could avoid.
Yeah, I think it's vital. Being prepared and understanding what you're going into. I think that's a great point, because sometimes there is, you hear that I'm doing this because I want to work like less hours for more money. And it's like, if you're going to go and be a truly independent contractor, it's kind of the other way. You actually have, the expectation is that, you are a specialist delivering a service. And there's not a time piece on that. And
Yeah,
that sometimes is often,
yeah.
often missed.
And also work with the organizations where getting through the door is as an independent contractor, as an employee or whatnot. But work with the organization, once you're through the door, you're respected the same way. Because the last thing you want is you don't feel valued just because you are compensated slightly differently. So work with the organization, you kind of blend in, and the culture is such that allows that to happen, then that would be the right place for you.
And then when I look back at Shahzad, you've worked on, when I think about Microsoft Dynamics projects, you've worked on some of the larger largest sort of global programs? I know there's a lot of large programs over there, but when you kind of think back and you kind of look at your extensive experience that you do have across those large scale Dynamics projects, are there, when you look at sort of like, are there common pitfalls that you sometimes see that you think that now in the role that you're in now, that you think your learnings over those sort of that period that allows you to kind of go in, that does help you ensure a sort of suits, call it smoother or more successful deployment? But when you look back at that experience, has that experience that you had on those large global projects really been able to kind of shape your, I guess, vision and awareness of potential pitfalls and what, and it'd be interesting to know, and especially share with the audience, are there some common themes and pitfalls that you often see in these large programs? I guess don't always have to be large programs, but just sort of fundamentally these kind of programs and projects.
Yeah, I think the way I look at it is, Phil, that it's like the pitfalls, bizarre enough, are very similar between large or, oh, I mean, notwithstanding the kind of global side of things, in Middle
Sure.
East, the taxation is different in some regulatory compliance and whatnot, and the 1099 in the US, and there's kind of nuances you need to be aware of, and you need to be very well aware before you get into that project or delivery for that particular client.
Hmm.
But when you look at the pitfalls, actually, they are not a million miles from a very small project to medium to very large. But the reason we talk about the pitfalls of the large ones is because the consequences are quite dire, and the impact because of a poor config delivery, or undefined business process or audit issue or compliance issue is quite big and visible, and a lot of people, or in some cases regions, get impacted by that. Whereas if the company was quite small and they found a bit of a compliance
Sure.
issue, and they may or may not even be getting audited on it, and they can write their internal kind of course correct it, and move on. So the pitfalls, I mean, going to that, I mean, like I said, the impact that kind of determines that how bad it was. But the common mistake to me is, and it's an interesting one, because in my young days, I have also used this kind of the language of a cookie cutter to say, well,
Yeah, yeah.
let's define a cookie cutter and then roll it out, from global to, and it's great. I'm not saying it's wrong, but as I've aged, kind of realize, or in ERP advisors, we realize that let's define the cookie cutter with the client, because that is very important. And the cookie cutter isn't here just a prepackaged solution to say, there you go, that's the cookie cutter, let's go and roll it out. And that's where the challenges kind of come in. Sorry, the birds outside you might be hearing. I'll shut the door in a sec. The challenge is that the cookie cutter that you take to those global organizations, they quite often, they weren't very well defined to hold water for a larger audience, when the user community goes from 500 to 1,000 to 10,000 to 20,000. And now you cannot just write a little course correction audit note in the form of some detective control. You actually have to prevent it from happening. So I think, to me, the pitfalls are that, don't use technology as the solution. Use the technology as a platform, as an enabler, as a medium to what the process and the business is going to be fitting on it, and then see if that's going to work. And if that doesn't, then maybe you don't need to change the technology, but actually make sure you define that process, compliance note, whatever it might be, with the business before it hits, because that's where the projects get the bad press, and rightly so, because the technology itself wasn't stopping you to work around it, but we just haven't surfaced it because we didn't know it well enough. And to be honest, I mean, again, I'll say myself, I was lucky to be part of that AMAC kind of project at the outset, when the product, you said it absolutely right, the product wasn't 100% ready for the
It wasn't
program
mature,
and a
was it?
company of this size. What it enabled me to do, leading the large team, um, was to understand the business at the nth possible level. And that was, to me, a once in a lifetime opportunity. And
Yeah.
I did capitalize that. I learned, I mean, You may or may not recall lots of visits to Canada, US,
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Far East, etc., just to learn. Why did I have to go there to learn? What is SOX compliance, which
Mhm.
of course is quite a big thing. It wasn't
Mhm.
like as well known when
Yep.
I had to do my kind of mastering of SOX, and that was amazing for me to learn all of those things, to see how I'm going to use the same technology. I'm not going to redo the whole thing, to work on it and learning
Yeah.
the business kind of pretty much various verticals, almost all key aspects of the business around the technology. That was the opportunity, I think. If anyone has that, avail it. Work on those
Mhm.
projects. Even if you don't have a very senior role, it doesn't matter. Bring a curious mind in and learn what's going around in the business, and that to me is a key to avoid those pitfalls. It's unlikely gonna be a product or a technology or a piece of code that's going to let you down. It's how it's being used that potentially will. And then obviously there's a lot of buzzwords with the data and all of
Yeah,
that,
of course.
all the right things that I don't need to say everybody
Yeah, of
would even
course. You
think of
must do, yeah.
starting ERP would read all those things. They all kind of valuable lessons as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then I guess when I look at where you are today with ERP Advisors and your business there, it's a rapidly growing organization in the Microsoft Dynamics space. What do you think in terms of, and you're doing some really positive things that you're doing, and I enjoy working with you and always have done. But when you look at it, what do you think are your kind of core differentiators, unique value propositions that really has helped accelerate your growth as a business over the last 5, 6, 7 years? For me, in terms of knowing you as a person, I think when I always talk to people about you and the business, I always talk about, I guess, the kind of the humanness of the business, as in like we are all human beings, and that there's a real respect and an understanding for people, their lives. That work is part of life, but there is people have lives outside of work and those kind of things, and that there's a real understanding and appreciation for that. But that's something that I talk about, that I kind of, I guess, I externally present to people. But yeah, I'd love to know from you, Shazad, in terms of your thinking from that perspective.
I think this is it, Phil. You kind of said it in a way that the human or the people side of it, to me, is what differentiates us from I can go as far as saying pretty much any other partner out there. It's the
Yeah.
people that we have, who represent us. It's a culture that we have, is a differentiator. And I think it was not long ago we were just having like a leadership meeting, and somebody said, and it was really interesting to hear, they were like, somehow we've created a culture where people don't want to let their teammate down, or their team member in their team who may report
Yeah,
to
yeah.
them down.
Mm.
Nobody cares about you, Shazad, or their line managers. And that was the most beautiful thing, I must say, I
Yeah.
ever heard. Because if you foster and nurture that culture where you are, and it was actually came out of one specific place where, a chap in Australia
Uh-huh.
is working some crazy hours on that particular day to
Yeah, yeah.
match with the chap in the US's kind of problem, with nobody knowing. Is like solving somebody else's problem because it's got to be done. And he's the one who's actually, young family and all that, working some absolute crazy hours that particular day.
Mhm.
Obviously I found that second hand and third hand,
Mhm.
and we acknowledge that, and all the rest of it. But it's that culture of, and how many of those instances happens every day? I promise you,
Mm.
plenty, with the presence
Yeah.
all the way going from Far East, Singapore,
Mhm.
Australia to US, Texas, and Europe in between, and India and
Yeah.
Pakistan, and all of those instances happen as we speak right now. But nobody makes any big deal. They just do it because that's the right thing to do.
And because they want to do
They
it.
want to
Do you
do
know
it.
what I mean? There's a difference, like when we were talking about at the beginning, people want to do it because of that reason you've just explained. They want to do it for their team. They're not just doing it because you're saying, or someone above them, they're saying,
It's
you need to work these hours. What a great, environment to create and culture to create that
I
it's
love
like
it,
that.
Phil. I genuinely do. It's obvious. There's obviously going to be company KPIs. We always look at the employee satisfaction and
Sure.
surveys and all the usual stuff. But we don't ever worry about those things because technically nothing is mandated on people other
Hmm.
than do the right thing and to do
Yeah.
it right, and they just do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
They just do it,
Mm.
and yeah, I think that to me is a big difference. How we do it, how we go about it is, there's no secret recipe. I'll share, like, right now. I'll tell you one
Mm.
thing we do when we kind of like hire, interview, and as part of the hiring process, it's amusing when people say, show me the job description, it's very important because it kind of narrows down what you're after. But that match to the job description does not mean you're matched to the organization. So if we kind of going through having a casual chat in the first round of interviews, and the person has mastered the heck out of the bullet points in the JD, some they knew themselves very well, some they had to Google, Chat GPT, whatnot to master, and you could tell in the interview that they kind of like absolutely mastered that bit. That doesn't mean that you are still the right
The
fit
right
in that
person.
particular place. Equally, there's been quite few instances where even during the kind of interview, the person's like, actually, by the looks of it, the skill set you're after actually is not my speciality. We still hire the person because there's another kind of job description, if you like, out there. But we felt the person is right, and the person has to fit
Hmm.
in. And there's another
Yeah.
place a person fits in, and boy, they've done so well in that different job than they initially applied for. And I think it's like right people fitting in the right. Everyone is People are great. It's just where they fit in the organization. You just need to be very careful with that because that demotivates them if they are undervalued,
Of
undermined,
course.
and they're not in the learning journey. They're not challenged enough or over challenged, whichever way. So it's kind of like finding a good balance. And then, like I said before, it's a mindset. It just lives and breathes itself. You
Hmm.
don't need to worry about
Yeah.
it. It just runs itself.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. And I get if we look ahead to the future, a lot of exciting things happening with the product. There's a lot of conversations around, I guess, disruption within sort of the technology transformation space with the sort of new technologies and things out there like that. How can you, I guess, can you vision? Do you have much of a plan? Can you see where you'd like to be in terms of over the next 3 to 5 years? Is there a bit of a clear idea of where you'd like to go, where you'd like to be, and I guess how maybe you may get there?
We have, and I will add to it that the vision, when you translate your vision into reality, it has to have some flexibility and some
Always.
evolution component added to it.
Hmm.
So vision wise, yes, we have where we are today. We had a vision 3 years back where we needed to be. Did we tweak? Did we make adjustments? Oh heck yeah! We went to certain regions where I did not think we needed to go, but to be effective in what we do and to get the best value in that particular market, and understanding the local needs, we had to expand in certain regions. So the vision will change. The disruptors you're saying, I wouldn't call disruptors. I'll call them enablers, and that is just the way it is. So we are fortunate because we kind of were born out of the core principle, as we kind of touched before, that don't carry the briefcase. Work with the companies that actually will define the briefcase with you, and then help delivering that. Work the milestones with them. Don't hide behind your 100-page project plan and some very clever statement of works that nobody could read, and
Yeah, yeah.
everything is written to protect yourself.
From a lead,
That
yeah,
energy on where you're gonna take the client. Don't
yeah.
don't don't stress too much. If it goes pear shaped, then what you gonna do. You need to protect yourself. Don't be honest with them. Be transparent with them. If it goes pear shaped, they will work with you to fix it. They will fix even your problems if you've got that partnership build. So to me, Phil, the vision hasn't changed. The vision is exactly the same as 5 years ago, which will be next five
Mm,
years. We
yeah.
want to be the partner of choice. I'm not
Hmm.
saying we want to be the best dynamic specialist, which I am proud to say we are, or
Hmm.
best compliance
Sure.
specialist, or the best kind of SOX experts in the industry. We have all that, but that does not define us. We want to be seen as the true partners. It's a two-way stream, and we don't want it to be labeled by some beautiful logos of, the gold, the diamonds, the we want it to be based on the outcome, and that
Yeah.
outcome has no definition other than you call a CFO of a multi-billion dollar firm, and you can call any, you say, what do you think of ERP Advisors? They say bloody good in what they do. They genuinely helped us to get through that. We had our moments at this point, that point, we worked on that, we worked together, we overcame that, and that's the outcome we are after. Touch wood, the table is made of glass. We have that to date, and we would
Yeah.
not drop the ball on that one. The
Yeah.
disruptors, as we call them, are the, I mean, obviously we all know that. I'll drop the A ball here, the artificial
Hmm.
intelligence
Yeah.
and all of that, and we are absolutely on top of that. There's a whole innovation stream. It's headed by our CTO, and it's got a stream under him. A lot of work ongoing, and we're testing out some use cases in our own organization, because let's face
Brilliant.
it, we are a global consulting
Yeah.
organization. So if
Sure.
we are doing it, if we're having a challenge or a problem that Dynamics cannot address, or some
Hmm.
fancy project management tool cannot address, then surely the companies out there will have the same problem. And if we are overcoming that internally, surely those use cases could be rolled out and scaled to wider organizations. So yes, we're using those kind of disruptors or enablers in very different way. To where I see the risk is, because we have grown, well, organically, and our team is grown
Hmm.
with the specific skill set around the business process, the transformation journey, complemented by the technology. And now you overlay that with some agentic AI, we're letting agents to do some clever stuff for you. We have the core, we have the backbone to go up. The risk
Hmm.
we'll see in the industry will be where some very clever things are done higher up without knowing what problem you were trying to solve, and the problems that humans couldn't resolve, your AI agent will also not be able to resolve, because you haven't thought through the back office, the backbone, true business proposition, that why that agent exists in the first place. So we want to capitalize on that expertise of ours in the industry, and equally leveraging the technology shift in the world, and the paradigm that where we are now is kind of moving away, and we want to be in the forefront of that. So the vision would not change.
Yep.
The delivery of the vision is gonna adopt all the new platform that's coming our way. I'll call them blessings. They are blessings.
Yeah. Absolutely.
More
Well,
more gadgets thrown at us to say do better. Your values do not change. Your ways of working will change, but the delivery will be more optimal, and we are absolutely on top of that.
Well, and I think it's one of those things with AI in terms of it can complement what you do really well if you use it the right way. If you just try to use it to create shortcuts and to make life easier or cut costs, that's where I think problems can lie. Certainly at the minute. Shahzad, thank you so much for your time. Just before you go, there's one question that I do like to ask everyone, and it's, if you're sat across a coffee table and a friend of yours is a CFO, CIO of a large organization who are just sort of saying to you, "Hey, Shazad, I'm about to embark on a large scale global D365 program of work. Is there any kind of snippets of advice that you'd kind of say, just before you do this, there's a couple of things that I'd just like to highlight, or pieces of advice or guidance or things that you'd suggest they might do before they do that, apart from using ERP advisors, obviously?"
This is Phil, I always say the best sale is the ones you don't sell. We
Sure.
we would never say use ERP
Yeah.
advisors. We'll
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
the right thing, and let them connect with us. But yeah, I mean, if they have chosen Dynamics 365, obviously conversation is slightly different, because they're a little bit far ahead in the journey. They know
Sure.
what
They've
ERP
selected a
is, they know what
product.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
transformation is, etc. My advice to them will be build an internal team
Okay.
and partner with a truly trusted, honest external team that will help you own the project, the delivery, and they can very simply, in absolute clear language, explain to you how they're going to do it. Don't embark on a journey with the doesn't matter it's a fixed price or T&M, assuming that that's their problem and this is our problem. If the partner is kind of telling you and you know it upfront that they are protecting themselves more than they need to protect, they need to demonstrate how you can own this project. That does mean me scaling back, actually ramping down my team to give you the knowledge, the tools, the people that you need. And that's your end goal. We'll work with you. We can achieve that in 6 months, 12 months, 18, 24. That is your true partner. And
Yeah.
Dynamics 365, I mean, whole day long, it's a fantastic product. Microsoft investment, you could see it's paying dividends now. Doesn't matter, it's a construction industry, engineering, or services, or manufacturing, whichever, or retailing, whichever way you go. The product, don't invest too much energy. Is the product right? Because
Yeah.
I'm not saying, because obviously we partner and all the rest. The product is gonna be right. The product will not fall short. There's a big chance. Just make sure you get your internal team, and your internal team would not be ready day one. So you don't need to overburden yourself to say, "Oh, I need to hire all the industry specialists." Blah blah blah. You may not need even one. You might just keep your internal team that's coming from IT, from finance, a very small team. Let partner help you evolve this mindset and expand the team. And before you know, if the capability is shifted from your left eye, the external partner, to the right. So it's a long-winded way of me saying, invest your energy on team and people. Don't stress too much about technology. You'll see the goodness of technology in a very short period of time with Dynamics 365 and with the AI now and all the Power Platform. The toolkit is
Yeah.
there. Focus on
Yeah.
people and
Yeah.
yeah, work with us. And we don't have no qualms about telling a client that you're not ready yet, and that
Hmm.
does mean
Yeah.
deferring our
Absolutely.
revenue. We're quite open about it. We don't talk to the companies till we have an agreed statement of work. As long as NDA is there, we're happy to advise you, guide you, and if you think that some other partner or company is gonna be your preferred one, even then we can help you point in that direction. So not just as ERP advisors or companies or organizations who are that open and transparent, work with them.
Thank you for that, Shahzad. I think it's a really interesting point because I think it's vital that I guess organizations understand that at the end of the day, it's their system. Like they're the ones that will be taking that on at a certain point in time. So they've got to put that level of, I guess, ownership in at the beginning with their own people to work with you, to work with their partner. Sometimes we often hear it, our partner are doing that, our partner are doing that. And they've almost, sometimes it feels like they've passed the baton and say, okay, we'll see you in 12 or 24 months and we'll have a great shiny new system. And we're not going to have to do anything and it's going to be great. And we're just going to keep carrying on with our lives day in, day out. And it's, in 24 months time, we're going to come in on Monday morning and we're going to have all shiny new system. But I think there is a realization that there's a lot more that the customer has to put in with time, effort and energy and certainly putting their best people on it where they can. Shahzad, that was fab. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for listening today. Please make sure you subscribe to stay up to date with the latest episode or watch in full all episodes on YouTube.